Everyone. Hi there. It's Jody Sutter of the Sutter Company, and it's Just Ask Jody Live. It's my LinkedIn Live series, and today we are going to be joined in a few moments by Russel Wohlwerth, who I will give a bit of a longer introduction, but you all probably know him as one of the best known agency search consultants. But before we get to Russel, because we have so much that we want to ask him about his perspective from the clients and on how to improve the way agencies pitch new business to clients and manage clients throughout the review. But before we get to that, I just want to make a couple of quick announcements and let you know a few other events that are coming up that you might be interested in. Number one, in December, I'm going to be doing I'm calling it the New Business Blueprint. It is going to be a workshop for creating your agency's annual plan for new business. Because here's what I see a lot of times this time of year is you'll be looking, it's Q4, and you're looking at what happened or didn't happen from last year. And most agencies feel like they fall short of their goals. So this year, what I want to do is give you a framework to put together a plan that's actually going to get done. So I hope you join us. My team member, Megan, has just put, or she will put in the comments, a link to a coming soon page. We're in the process of getting our landing page up there. But if this sounds like it's something that could be of interest to you, please do head over to that page and sign up, thesuttercompany.com/new business blueprint. This is the first time I've done a group program, and because of that, I am charging a very attractive amount. I've already been told I should be thinking about doubling it. So this is also a really good opportunity to work with me for a very competitive amount of money compared to a lot of my one-on-one work, and come out of the workshop with a plan for 2023. Okay, that's number one, suttercompany.com, new business blueprint. Next month, I'm going to be in Toronto at the ICA, the Institute of Canadian Agencies. I'm going to be teaching a workshop called Award-Winning Case Studies. It's going to be about how to create the best award submissions possible. Year after year, judges have the same complaints about how award submissions fall short, and we're going to help you address those issues and make sure that you win an award this year. It's happening in Toronto, so for my Canadian or Toronto-based friends, come on by for that. And it also happens on the next day, the next time I do a LinkedIn Live. So Leah Power, who is the head of strategic initiatives there, she's going to be my guest, and you'll get more information about that on how to register. She's going to talk about thriving in the workplace, in the agency workplace. And, this has become such an important issue with COVID, as more people start talking about mental health in the workplace. I think it's going to be a really great session, and she's an awesome person. So please do join us for that. All right, getting that out of the way. Now I'd like to welcome Russel Wohlwerth. Russel and I have known each other for a long time. He is one of the nation's, maybe the world's, top agency search consultants. Like a lot of agency search consultants, he does much more than that as well. He is a consultant and a consigliere to major marketers, helping them not only identify the agencies that they want to hire, but also working on the relationships. And we are going to talk today, we're going to try to focus on managing the pitch process once you're in it, but we've got some other questions. I know a lot of you who have registered had some questions you asked me to include. We're going to try to get to the most of them as we can in the short time we have with Russel. But whenever Megan is ready to bring Russel on in, there he is. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody who came in today. I know I hope you're really busy. So thank you for your attendance today.
Yeah. And, I think I'm just going to make myself even with you. Look at that. Okay.
I can move my desk up and down.
You're good. But yeah, we've got a lot of people who registered for this today. And so Megan is going to be monitoring the comments and the questions. We're going to try to get to as many questions as possible. I've got a few prepared. So bear with us. And if there are things that we haven't addressed at the end, you're welcome to contact me on LinkedIn or via email. My email's in my profile, and we can see if we can get your questions answered if we don't address them. But hey, Russel, how are you doing today?
I'm good. It's really hot in Los Angeles, so I'm in short sleeves. And if you hear a buzz, it's the air conditioning in my office going on very strong.
See, that's yeah. I actually just turned down the heater because
Oh,
it's really feeling like autumn here today in the Northeast, and I didn't want the heater to make too many sounds. But yeah, LA. This is the time of year when I think, it'd be nice to be in LA.
well, this is fire season, so we'll be burning
Okay.
down shortly in a couple of days. So.
Hey, Russell, I gave you a brief introduction. Is there anything that, I guess, before we get going, is there anything you want everyone to know about your role and, one of the reasons why you wanted to be here today? And thank you,
Yeah,
by the way.
yeah. Jody and I, as Jody said, have known each other for years, and we get on the phone. We have these like hour and a half great conversations about new business. So I offered to Jody, if you ever have an opportunity, I'd love to continue the conversation online and have agencies benefit from us. Yeah, I think the biggest thing to understand is there's many different kinds of search consultants out there. There's a lot of different models. Some of them, a lot of their revenue comes from agencies. We work only for marketers, so
Mhm.
agencies are always saying, "Hey, I sent you an email yesterday. You didn't respond." And
Yeah,
about 90% of my time is spent with marketers, but I love hearing from agencies and finding these amazing gems all over the country, all over the world. So
yeah.
it's a really interesting job I have, and but there's just so many agencies, and I know it's been a difficult environment. We are completely overwhelmed with thousands of agencies contacting us every
Right.
year.
So you're bringing up, and I think we're going to try to talk about this more at the end because there are some other issues I want to also talk to you about today. But I promise that before the end of this session, we will talk a little bit about how smaller agencies, especially, how and when and under what circumstances it makes sense to get in touch with Russell and what makes someone like Russell respond. So we'll get to that, I promise. But one of the things I wanted to also talk about, because the reality is, not to put the cart before the horse a little bit, but the reality is for a lot of small agencies, it doesn't always make sense to go pitch search consultants. It probably makes more sense to be targeted about their audience and do a great job of going right to the clients that they know they want to work with, right?
Yeah, I'd say that the majority of marketers who come to us are very large. This year has been large global reviews. I'd say probably between 85 and 90% of our client base involves doing projects for large global marketers. That said, there's still about 10% of the work we do that often involves
Yeah.
small agencies. But the reality is, I'm not going to have an opportunity every day for smaller agencies.
Right. But these guys are also, hopefully, smaller agencies are still going out and pitching new business. And so I thought there's a lot that we might be able to learn from you about engaging the client through the pitch process. And one of the questions that I had is around a perception, I think, of agencies about, I'm going to call it the one-sidedness of reviews, that the agency's got to do what the client says, and they don't have a lot of opportunity to engage. So I'm curious about if you could talk about the appropriate apertures for engaging with a client.
The first thing I want to make it clear is that every marketer is different. People want to paint with this broad brush. Marketers want this. It's like, what kind of pizza do people like? Where do people like to go on vacation? Everybody's got a different idea of what that is. The same with marketers. If it's being run by procurement, and procurement isn't bad. It's not big bad procurement, by the way. But if it's being
Right.
run by procurement, they tend to be much more about follow the rules.
Yeah.
I tell agencies, I like when you color outside of the lines a little bit. Don't blow up the rules. If we said, give us 2 case histories and you gave us a third, I'm like, okay, that's fine. But if you give us 10 case studies, we're going to say, okay, we're going to look at 2 of them. So I encourage agencies to have that creativity and color outside of the lines a bit. But listen very closely for the feedback you get. They're sending out a lot of signals like, don't do that.
So that's so interesting. I'm not even sure. It's already like, oh, already we're going off my script, but I think we're also diving down into something really interesting. I talk a lot about interpreting the RFP and reading between the lines, and so I wish marketers maybe could be more direct or more open about some of their issues. But In what way can you give an example of sometimes what an RFP or a client might ask for and what they really mean?
Yeah, first, I want to tell you that the people who write the RFP and the marketing team are usually
Mhm.
different groups. Sometimes it's a junior person, sometimes it's
Yeah.
procurement. And I'm always shocked that the CMO has never seen the RFP. And there's a lot of questions that have been asked by somebody who really, has a very vague idea of what you're looking for.
Oh, that's
So,
interesting.
yeah, so you got to be really careful with the RFP. And often, um, I agencies feel like the more information I give, the better. And
Hmm.
I have the opposite reaction. The less you give, the more focused you are, the
Right.
better. I think the biggest problem that marketers don't understand, and why, because we in the search business have run many searches, is we really need to understand what the situation is. I get into this argument with clients all the time. We like
Right.
to write a search brief of about 3 pages. Here's the
Yeah.
here's the situation, here's the marketing challenges. That way agencies can customize their response to what the client needs. But when you have no idea of what the client needs, I would, number one, think twice about maybe participating in that, because when you're not sure of what the client's issue is, agencies tend to do what I call the kitchen sink approach. You don't know what the
Right.
problem is, so you throw everything there, and it's that tonnage of information is really difficult to sort through.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to acknowledge, first of all, I see so many people, so many of my friends have joined us today. Probably your friends too, Russell. There does seem to be a little bit of an echo, and I apologize. I think that Megan is jumping in there. It sounds like maybe refreshing the page has helped some people get rid of the echo. I'm hoping. If not, I might be able to change away from my microphone if we think it's me or anyway. We're going to move forward and hopefully not, won't have too many technical issues get in the way. So what about, so, sometimes I'll also talk about with my clients, like one example I gave that actually came from a real RFP that in some ways it was a very direct statement. They were looking for, it was for higher education institution, university, and they were very clear. They said, we want a lead creative, and we want that lead creative agency to partner with a digital agency. They did not want an in-house digital agency, but that's all the RFP said. And so what I said to them is like for me, I automatically start to interpret, well, why? My client wasn't. So I don't know if I'm right, but my interpretation is like, look, what they didn't want is they didn't want an agency. This may sound a little harsh. An agency saying we're going to zhuzh up that guy or gal who's sitting all by herself in that department over there. That's our digital department, and we're going to create something bigger than it is. So this client, it was actually run by another search consultant. The search consultants probably said, you know what, don't want that. We know we need deep digital experience. So don't try to pull a fast one. We want a digital partner. Now that you know that, you can shape your answer so that it's beneficial, but don't try to circumvent it. And I don't know, I'd be curious to know what your interpretation might have been of that type of a question.
Yeah, it's first of all, it's a little strange because most agencies are digital at the core with, what is it,
That's
50 to
that's true. I
60%.
know. I thought so too.
But if a client could say, look, we're looking for you to partner as a creatively with a pure play digital agency, because
Yeah.
this involves really complex analytics or stuff, giving those little breadcrumbs really helps. But one of the problems is agencies often, and particularly smaller agencies, want to be a jack of all trades, and
Yeah.
sometimes clients need subject matter expertise. So I think that's what was going on. I think a little explanation in the brief or the initial RFP, RFI, whatever it was, could have provided a little bit more insight as to why. And in that case, I think it's suicide for you to say, "Oh, by the way, we have great digital." It's like, okay, I would interpret that as this is an agency that doesn't follow instructions.
And that may have been why it was so brief. We're going to give you just enough to tell you what we want. So yeah, so there's two implicit invitations. One, interpret this well, and two, follow our instructions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
clear
Mean,
signal.
speaking of instructions, what about engaging the client either through email or conversations um, throughout the pitch, especially if maybe there's a signal but not an explicit request not to connect. What are your general guidelines about what people should do there?
My opinion on that is we don't like agencies having conversations. I mean, ideally, one of the reasons you got selected is because you had a relationship or some history with that company. Once the search starts, we really try to push that away because agencies are all fighting for, territorial rights. I'm trying to create a relationship. And the marketer, when they're hiring us, they're really busy. And the last thing they want to do, they hired us to run interference for them. The last thing they want to do is get gifts and phone calls and, texts and whatever, even LinkedIn. Clients always say, hey, the agency, everybody in the team invited me to join LinkedIn. What should I do? And I don't have a good answer for that, but there's so much going on, through social media and stuff. We don't like that to happen, even though that's the best way to, really understand how to win a review. We prefer not to have that because it's you're one agency and you're never in a review by yourself. Otherwise, they just hire you.
Yeah. What about, I have so many questions coming off of this. What about calling you if it's being run by a consultant and the agency either finds something not clear or believes that they have something of import to express, either to help shape the review, something that's valuable to the client? Should they be contacting you?
Well, our process and our philosophy, Matt and myself, my partner Matt Ryan, is that we get on the line with every agency once we send an initial search brief and RFI and spend 30 to 45 minutes running through it, because we don't like to just drop it off and say, see ya, because there's often things that we couldn't put in writing in those briefs. And we encourage agencies to call us, not bug us every day and not ask, like, what's it going to take to win? How do I answer these questions? That's not our role.
That was actually another one of my questions is there such a thing as a bad question?
Yes.
It sounds like yes, there is.
I mean, the typical response is the bad question is the one that was never asked. But we had a review recently where the marketer said it was really clear to all of us is all this agency wanted to do is win the business and they could care less about us. And the agency telegraphed that in very, very bad ways. So yes, it's about winning the business. I know everybody wants to win, but hopefully you have, your hope is to help both your agency and the marketer move forward. And I think there's a saying I used to have. It's not about, well, I didn't used to have it. I still have it. I haven't spoken about it for probably 10 years, but it's not about having all the answers. It's about asking the right questions.
Yeah.
And to me, asking great questions is a much better way to merchandise your knowledge than trying to be a know-it-all, because we don't expect you to know it all.
Sure. Do you, I've been in situations where the agencies will, also I'm interested in your perspective on this, will try to, they may not have any obvious questions, so they'll try to come up with some good questions because they see that as a way to engage. And I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that. I think that seems a little gratuitous, but I also understand this idea. Well, if we get in there, then they're saying our name and it's some kind of engagement. What are your thoughts on that?
This is a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because when we ask for questions, our thought is, oh, these guys have no questions. What's the matter with them? So, but on the other hand, I've gotten agencies, we said, do you have any questions? And gotten 7 pages of questions. It's like, you're kidding. This is going to take 2 months to answer. You want to know it. That, again, my thought is the agency wants every advantage possible. We focus. What are your real questions? We're not going to be impressed by 7 pages of questions.
Yeah.
So, but it's difficult when we do throw out that net casting for questions. If you don't have any, the thought is, wow, maybe they're really not that interested in this.
Oh, that's really interesting.
So you're stuck. Typical new business. Damn if you do, damn if you don't.
Well, I think, and I know that there are a few people on in the attending today. I think this is also where a good new business person can really play a role. And for a lot of smaller agencies, they don't always have a new business person on staff. So my philosophy is that it's the CEO or the agency owner, or like that top seat is should be is the best new business person that agency has. And so you need that leader, either a trained business development person or someone senior enough like like the agency CEO to look at those questions and be involved and interpret it from the vantage point of the client, to understand, like, as a group, are these questions duplicative? Are these questions ones that we can answer ourselves? Are these questions that we can potentially make an intelligent assumption in the response so that we're not taking up a lot of valuable real estate in this Q&A period? Any, do you think that's a
Yeah.
valid approach?
I do. I really believe in having senior leadership, particularly for smaller agencies, because one of the reasons they're coming to a smaller agency is they get people of a higher level that are going to be working on their business that wouldn't at a much larger agency. And clients are always saying, "Oh, we only want to see the working team." And my response to them typically is, the turnover rate for agencies is like 35%. So
Right.
chances are that working team, 1 out of every 3 people in January is not going to be there in December. But
Yeah.
the senior people are the keeper of the flames, the keeper of the culture. So you want them involved. You don't want them dominating the pitch, but having them there, it's very important to have to cut some pipe with those senior people.
For sure. And I think, when you're talking about a smaller agency, if you're, between 5 and 55 people, that becomes a little bit easier because, of course, the CEO or the agency owner is probably involved in almost every pitch. And then there are fewer layers, fewer people. So you probably are. I mean, that's really what I like to see is, well, I don't think you should stuff a pitch room, but a nice like range. The person who's kind of like the racy or the rasky, depending on how you pronounce it, who's responsible, but who's going to be accountable, and who are the support team. So you sort of get a sense of like, yeah, these are the people who are going to be responsible for me day to day.
Yeah, two quick thoughts on that too, in terms of, a lot of times I get the question, how many people should we have in the room? If there's going to be 6 clients, you should have like, 6 to 8, maybe. You shouldn't have 15 people because you feel like, it's like the FBI just walked in when I've been with a client, we've had like 15 agency people. It's very intimidating.
Yeah.
So that's, you should make that commensurate to, you don't want to overwhelm the client.
Yeah, it's funny. I just recorded a video about that, and I also a couple of mistakes that I see is one sort of the overwhelm and like this idea of matching. Like even if the client brings 12 people, but you've got 3. If your team is well represented with only 3, then don't bring another 9.
Yeah,
Right?
and something else. Introductions are the bane of a good chemistry meeting. Agencies often will spend 25 to 30% of the time on introductions. And I really don't care that you're a Virgo and your favorite color is blue. What I'd like to do, you can just do a quick introduction and then explain why you're in the room. And then how you talk will be a much better introduction than going on for 5 minutes.
Hey, I've got a question. Of course, it came from Lisa Spielman. Of course, she is going to ask a great question. And that is, what is your criteria for selecting a client that you want to represent? I think that's something that's not talked about a lot that I think agencies would really appreciate hearing.
Yeah, because to me, there's nothing more empowering than having people call and say, I don't think you're right. Call our competition or something, because what we'd like to do is have work with good brands that have good products, and we sort of pride ourselves on the major brands, but also that don't have a history of changing agencies every year, and that are going to be responsive in the pitch and not going to just leave it all on us, because I can't answer all the questions, because you can tell really clearly, oh, we're really busy and we're very glad to have, to give this to you. It's like, no, even though you're hiring a consultant, there's still a lot of work on the client side. So those are some of the things that we look for.
That's very interesting that you all look at clients that sort of how they treat their existing agencies. Even though this review is for potentially replacing that agency, you want someone who walks into that relationship with a baseline level of respect and knowing that they need what an agency can provide. That's interesting.
And other signals I'm looking for, it's like, we are in new business pitches all the time, just like you all are. And, if a client cancels 10 times, I'm like, what, this is just a precursor of what it's going to be like to work with these people. So it's like, thank you, but no thanks.
Although another one on my list of questions was asking a little bit more about what it's like for a client to go through this review. It's also something I think agencies can lose sight of. And again, it goes back to the one-sidedness, or it's easy for agencies to complain that they're asking for so much, or they're not being clear, or they're not giving us deadlines. Or what is it like for the client to have to manage a review internally, even if they're working with someone like you?
It's a lot more work than they ever anticipated, number one. One of the things I've noticed since the pandemic is clients just are a lot less accepting of things taking a long time. They want to go fast. We can only go so fast, because then I question, why are we doing a review? But clients often, we've got, for every part of the review, every stage of it, we have a sort of a background. What's it like to sit in the long list meeting? What's the purpose of a chemistry meeting? Because so many of them have not been in reviews before, so they're not sure what to expect. So it's very helpful to manage their expectations.
Yeah.
But most, if your client has done 10 reviews, there's another reason to, like, I think I'm going to avoid this one.
Pass on that one.
Yeah.
But I think that's, so I really, that came to me, I don't know, a bunch of years ago now, but I remember when I first kind of had that epiphany, like, oh, this is not just a lot of work for me and the team that's helping me on this. It's a lot of work for the client as well. And it's not and I say that not because I think that we should feel sorry or feel for any more empathy for the client than anyone else. But I think that once you can understand that it can be difficult, time consuming for a client, then you start to adjust how you respond to them.
Yeah. Again, clients marketers have the same problems that agencies do. They don't have enough people. Everybody's doing the work of two people. And one of the hardest things for us to figure out is, why are you doing this? We know you want a new agency. So for a very large, probably the largest review I've done in years, it was done like 2 years ago. We did 75 interviews around the world. I had a strategist with me, and we're just starting work on another client. I think we're doing about 30 interviews. So these interviews, even though they're time consuming, are very, very helpful in terms of really trying to understand what are the dynamics going on in this search, so we can represent it correctly.
And that's before you even send out any kind of RFI to agencies.
It's pre-work.
Wow. Yeah, that's intense.
It is. And doing the scheduling and telling people, like, I've never done a review, I have nothing to say. And then we have a questionnaire we give them, and we just sort of say, hi, I'm so-and-so. And then they just talk for an hour straight. Typically.
Interesting. Wow. Yeah.
So
yeah, the more you can put yourself in, I think it's like a general statement. The more you can put yourself in your client's shoes, the more you can be strategic about how you respond to their needs. And I think the more they are going to respond to you. A couple of other questions that were starred, and I want to see if I can get to those. So Sam Archibald, hi Sam, asks, is there a common misconception you hear or see a lot from small agencies about working with marketers at your scale? And I think, Sam, what you're saying is there a misconception such as a small agency is going to be too small for us? Let me know, like, shoot another comment if I misinterpreted that. But I find that that's usually what small agencies are thinking about. So let's take it that way.
Two misconceptions, both for and against small agencies. One is what I call marketing racism. It's like, I just had a client in an input document say, holding company agencies are terrible. They're all the same. All they care about is money. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then a lot of marketers, particularly older, I'm old, so I can say that, older marketers have misconceptions about what a small agency was. What a small agency was 20 or 30 years ago versus what a small agency is today are very, very different, because we've had so many people leave larger agencies, and you can get some of the most talented people in the world. So, but there is, amongst those people in that population, there is a misconception that, oh, smaller agencies, it's like, I'm going to suffer. I'm not going to get the same quality. That is not true at all, as we know. But there are a lot of misconceptions about that out there.
Although I will say, and granted, this is going back a few years, but I remember being at a small agency and talking to you, Russell. You had a big automotive pitch. Wasn't the biggest brand, but it was certainly a very desirable brand. And we had some credentials that I thought matched us perfectly. And I didn't understand why you wouldn't let us in. And but first of all, thank you, because you took the time to have a conversation with me, and you were very clear about why. And it did have to do with scale. In this case, you required scale that our agency couldn't even come close to faking. And so it was unfortunate, and I had to deliver the news to my CEO. But so I think, it is interesting. I think you could be a small agency these days and be able to bring in partners. And yet there are also times when small agencies maybe do not have the resources that they really need for certain clients.
Yeah. I mean, agencies contact me all the time. So let's say, hypothetical marketer, the account requires 20 FTEs, and your agency has 25 people.
Yeah.
It's just, it just doesn't make any sense to have
Yeah.
to put everything in with one client. And we generally have a ratio of the size of the billings or the agency should be 3 to 4 times larger. So if we're looking for a client with that needs that has 10 FTEs, we're looking for somebody at least has 40 or 50 people
Right.
at the
Yeah.
agency.
And again, the agency wide, to take a client that size, it's going to
And
monopolize.
agencies are all, just put me in. And it's like, we can't. And I think I know who that brand is, one of the most iconic brands in the world. And
Yeah.
they have to answer to their parent company in another country. And it's like, who is this? But, that said, when we get a brief we want somebody that's not gigantic, who's
Yeah.
light on their feet, who can be, flexible and stuff. That's the brief that would be right for a smaller agency.
Well, I'll use actually another real example without naming names. You and I were also having a conversation a few months back, and we started talking about a marketing consultancy that specializes in helping marketers participate in gaming. And I mean, they are tiny, and they were an agency I was working with, and you had been made aware of them because gaming was really important to a marketer you were working with. And so I think in that sense, if you are, and maybe that's an overly specific example, but that's where I will turn to an agency and say, what does, besides a broad statement about being collaborative or innovative or integrated, what is the problem that you solve for clients right now? I know that can make agencies feel uncomfortable because it's like, oh, it narrows us down. But
Modern marketing has been very unkind to agencies, I think, because two big observations. Number one, it's almost commoditized what agencies do because everybody's digital at the heart. And I think I see a lot of agencies still struggle to explain what they do. They all sound the same. And the second point about having large or smaller agencies is the clients tend to think of agencies as they don't understand what they do. They're tolerant, their tolerance for understanding is huge. But
interesting.
but there are because of all the technological expertise, agencies have cleaved off with super specialties, which we didn't see before. It used to be,
Yes.
creative and media and direct marketing. And now, we're looking for agencies, not that they're small, who's a specialist on Google's platform or Amazon's platform. And these are the in-house areas that clients tend not to have. So agencies have cleaved. On one hand, modern marketing has commoditized everybody, but on the other hand, the technology and all that has cleaved it into thousands of specialists, which we need often.
And I will say, for like my advice to some of these small agencies who maybe want to start getting the attention of the search consultants is, and this maybe I think is going back and answering Sam's revised question, is I don't think small agencies are doing themselves a favor when they go in with more general, more broad statements, even if it's true, because you're just going to get lumped into a sort of big amorphous pile. So a small agency may be able to go directly to a marketer and say, we're fully integrated and highly creative, blah, blah, blah. But when you are going to someone like you who has limited bandwidth, you may want to make a strategic decision to be hyper-focused in one area that marketers are looking for right now.
Well, one of the reasons why we like to have small agencies send us a deck and sign up in our database is I'll have a client call and say, look, we don't want to do a review, but do you know a smaller agency that's located, within, one time zone of our headquarters that does this or that? And those are, that's the immaculate review. There is no review. So it's like, that old saying that for the New York lottery, if you don't play, you can't win. So we encourage agencies. It's just we don't have time to have discussions with thousands of agencies because we make our money from marketers and they occupy the majority of our time.
So fill out those forms and be strategic about that as well. Hey, I just wanted to do a quick time check. We're at about 35 minutes in. Are you okay? We've got a couple of other questions. Are you okay with going maybe 10 minutes longer?
I'm good.
Okay, excellent. Because I had Sean Phillips asked, this is kind of a big question. I'll be interested in knowing how you answer this. Thank you, Megan. How do you see agencies pitching these days? Spec creative cases or something else?
I personally am not a huge fan of spec creative because it gets into that old dilemma. Well, you're buying the campaign and not the agency. But one of the problems I have with marketers is, well, how are we going to tell? It's like, well, we just looked at all those case studies. Can't you tell from their work I prefer more of a strategic brief and
Mhm.
maybe like a little bit of perhaps a drop or two of creative in there. But some clients just need to see creative, and then they realize after they see it, my favorite part in a search where there's spec creative is a client saying, look, that agency A clearly had the best creative, but agency B, I think, is the best agency for us in the long run. I know they didn't get it today. And I always talk about, agencies that have those fast twitch muscle fibers do really good in new business. But clients often can see that, they didn't get it right. And they have the ability to separate out speculative work from thinking and capabilities and smarts.
Can you talk, what did you mean by the fast twitch muscles? What were
Fast
the,
twitch, I mean, because a search is an artificial mating ritual. Let's face it, and
yeah,
it goes really
yeah.
quick. So, if the fast twitch muscle are, you can respond fast. You can write response to a brief in a couple of days. But I guess you could argue that most clients are like that. They don't, everything is a rush. But the reality is that's why it appeals to the sprinter type of agency who can answer things, but may not have the depth to be the deep thinker. And in
Interesting.
situations like that, where agencies say, that was a better campaign. And unfortunately, incumbent agencies, we're seeing a lot more incumbent agencies pitch. A lot of times they're thinly disguised costing exercises, but still,
Yeah.
the incumbent agency always has the best campaign because they work with the client for
Yeah.
years. So that's what did that make sense in terms of the fast twitch muscle fibers? They're built, they're a svelte machine built to respond to searches, but may not be best for the long term.
That is so, I am going to ponder that. That might end up being a like further Jody's further thoughts in an article or Just Ask Jody, because wow, again, like as a new business person in me says, okay, so how does an agency, like how do they need to equip themselves to do both? So interesting. I don't know the answer, but I'm going to be thinking about that.
And that's why you need a search that's got a little, you don't need to go, I
Yeah.
see all these year-long searches. And I think,
Yeah.
wow, that's kind of crazy. But, you want to be able to see the agency in different ways. So each part of the process is designed to tap into a
Yeah.
different capability there.
Yeah. I'm going to there were so many questions, you guys. Thank you so much. I wanted to take one from Adam Levine. Hi, Adam. Can you believe that the lead singer from Maroon 5 has joined LinkedIn Live? That's so awesome. How do you prefer agencies keep you up to date on them, and how do you stay current on the agency landscape? And that was sort of how I promised to wrap this up today anyway. So thank you, Adam, for asking.
Adam, that is a question that we get frequently. And I have agencies that send me an email every week. And I'm not going to open up my email right now, but I'm probably 1,500, maybe 2,000 at this time of the year emails from agencies. So we'd like to hear from you on a semi-regular basis. Every week, every month is probably 2 months, unless there's big news, either a gigantic hire or you want a piece of business. And by the way, we don't like just to know that you want a piece of business. We like to know why. What was it? We like to get like updates. We keep all the emails agencies send us, they're filed, and we like to get decks updated like once a year, credential decks. So I think on a quarterly basis or twice a year if you don't have any news, because there is that recency effect. But I just can't be reading hundreds and hundreds of agency decks. I try to go through them mainly on the weekends because I have agencies who just blow my mind. I've called after opening their email and I'm like, you are amazing. I never even heard of you. So keep those cards and letters coming, I guess is the best thing to say. But the sequencing should be, quarterly or once or twice a year, but around news ideally.
Yeah, I think I used to do that probably monthly. And it was a simple email like, yeah, here's some things that we won. Here are some highlights, some interesting things that we did that were different. And the other thing that I would include people, here's what we lost. I think I realized that early on, like we've just lost this. You could even give the reason for it. Usually agencies lose accounts not because they did something so egregiously bad. It's because new CMO, a whole host of reasons. But I would say we lost this piece of business. So now we have an opening. We have a team that's ready. They have the intelligence, they have the experience, and we would like to fill that with this type of a client.
And I just want to add one thing on there too, because I get a lot of emails saying, "Hey, we'd like to learn all about you." It's like, have you even been to our website? Because we spent a lot of time crafting the website. So,
Yeah.
and they don't send a credentials deck. So, and then here, go to these links. That's an email I will just file in agency email and not,
Yeah.
include. You're putting all the work on me, and
That is also interesting, I think, psychologically in any sales situation. Again, we were talking about this earlier about like the more is better, and we human beings do not like a lot of choice. We like, that's why like the whole like rule of three. Let me
yeah,
choose between small, medium, large. Or let me. That's also, or like classic selling is, each email, even project management technique. Each email, for instance, should be around one issue. Don't give them 5 issues they have to respond to, because they're only going to respond to, maybe you'll be lucky if they respond to 3. So yeah, direct their attention in very focused ways is what I would say.
yep.
Yeah.
And I respond when I see. So I got an email the other day from an agency. It's about 235 people in the Midwest, and they said, please take a look at our new website. Here's what we've done. I'm like, oh my God, that's a fantastic website. So I'm sending them an email saying, hey, my compliments to you. That was really good.
But they did the hours
The
are really cryptic.
rationale.
They like, we're going to tell you what we're going to tell you. Then we're going to tell you by please go to our website. And then maybe they figure it out somehow. We're going to tell you what you told you. But yeah, like, here's what to look for. Not like, would you spend an hour wandering through the new pages on our website? Yeah,
I won't
that's
get
really
into
interesting.
agency websites. We can do that in another,
Yes.
webinar. But it's the most frustrating thing going to agency websites. Like, what do you do for a living? How many
Yeah.
people do you have? I know clients sometimes don't want you to use their logos and stuff, but we're like, who do you work with? And to me, particularly with smaller agencies, it's like, here's our collective experience, and it's the top 200 brands in the world. I'm like, okay, you've got 15 people, so is that, to me, doesn't count for a lot. Previous experience, we really like to know, how big you are. What I've found is I go into LinkedIn, by the way, and I look in, and it's not always accurate, but I'll see, okay, how many people at this agency are on LinkedIn? And it's like, okay, there's 5 people. So I use all kinds of things to try and figure out that the information that agencies don't give me on their websites.
Because that's your job, because you need to protect the client. You need to make sure that what the client is getting is accurate. And that, by the way, again, I hope I don't make this sound negative, but, for folks who are interested in talking to Russel and his colleagues, like their reputation is based on how well they manage the communication with the client. So I think also the more that you can understand that, that's helpful too. There was something else I was going to say and I totally forgot, but anyway. Oh, the LinkedIn. So the other thing about, just a really quick anecdote, that other RFP that I mentioned, they asked for, what was it? Like, they asked for a list of the people who'd be working on the account, or for maybe it was even like leadership. And then they said no bios, just the names and titles. And I said to my clients, interesting, what do you think they're going to do? And they like, I don't know. So the first thing they're going to go is to their LinkedIn pages. Make sure the LinkedIn pages are, again, I was interpreting it, but like, make sure those LinkedIn pages, when they go there, that the strategy director that you're putting forward, they don't go there and realize that he's such a freelancer, which in this case
Exactly
actually is the deal.
I mean, most agencies today just have a short bio. We ask for a photo, and we ask generally for give us the LinkedIn link. And Matt and I did a review a couple months ago, and the client was saying, "Gosh, everybody's been at the agency for less than 2 years," and they were a little concerned. So it's it's very transparent, but it's been a real help to me.
And then, of course,
it's not a commercial for LinkedIn, but it has been very helpful.
But that was also, I think, something else on my notes, is that idea that, and then I'll probably wrap this up, is that if you have no choice, let's say an agency has no choice, where you just like, we have big turnover, we've got a great team, they've got less than a year tenure, I would say be honest about that, because there's the only other way to be is dishonest about it.
We lost our largest client. There are, just don't leave it floating out there, because our minds will go to all the bad places. I can guarantee you.
And as a salesperson, here's like, be honest about it, and then point out the benefits. So the benefit is fresh thinking. These are people that we picked carefully, blah, blah, blah. And then now you're controlling your narrative.
Yeah. Agreed.
Russell, anything else that you feel it's important for small agencies to know in terms of how they should be communicating with you or pitching to today's marketers? How's that for an open-ended question?
Again, we work with Winmo because we figured we don't want agencies to have to do a million different kinds of intake forms. I know other consultants have their own. Other consultants charge money. We don't charge agencies anything. So I encourage you, while I can't guarantee I can have a personal an hour conversation with you, it would be great to sign up. There's a link in our website, rothryanhayes.com. And
so it's
sound like I'm doing
rothryanhayes.com, just so everyone knows.
Like I'm doing an infomercial here, but if you can go in there, and we also keep a collection of the credentials decks, which are really handy because again, most agency websites are sort of okay, but we get the deeper information. It's non-public in those decks. So that's the best way. And again, cadence, quarterly, once or twice a year. Unless you're like doing world-changing work, we don't need to hear from you every week.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for putting that super up.
And like, what's in it? Always keeping in mind what's in it for my audience. Why do they care? And how? Yeah, like how do I need to shape this information in a way that Russell and his clients will care? And if I can't shape it, maybe it's not important for them to know.
And can I add one last thing?
Of course, of course.
So I work with Matt Kasendorf at the 4A's a lot. Matt and I
are always here. I think he had to go.
Was Matt here? Okay.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
So I talk to Matt. I complain to him all the time, but I get all these agency decks, and I have no idea what these agencies do. And they've spent all the time crafting this like very flowery, sexy. It's like a headline for a product. I don't like when agency decks are too addy because even though the decks we see from Boston Consulting Group and McKinsey and stuff, which we're often working, they're working with the clients, so we're seeing their decks. Their decks are terrible because they get a lot of information, but they get a lot of respect.
That's so interesting.
I try to figure out, I read the whole deck and I'm like, I don't know where to file it because we cross-file you by location, your specialty. So I can't tell you all the times in a year, I'll call an agency and say, what do you do for a living? And they say, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, just think of a chart in Excel, a pie chart. Where does your money come from? I'll tell you what you do for a living.
Yeah. There was something else that I learned through, indirectly through Matt, but Matt Ryan had done a webinar for the 4A's a number of years ago that I sort of stumbled into on the 4A's website. I don't know if it's still there, but he would talk about your long list process. And just so everyone knows here, what you did then, at least, is you had a one page for the clients is before you contact any agencies, and you say, here's a long list of potential agencies. And here's a short amount of information about each. And at the bottom of that one sheet, it said agency is known for and you fill in the blank. You would fill it, Roth Ryan Hayes would fill in the blank, not the agency. And so I would say to the agencies I work with, how are you controlling what goes into that space?
Yeah, I call it the handles. If I have no handles in my mind, you're an agency that that's bad. So we still do that. We call it a landscape analysis. For clients, we'll go through and look at a longer list and give them, just a couple pieces of information. We map it out, and that way it gives the client truly is an analysis. Say, here's who we're looking at. And our philosophy is we prefer to start with a smaller amount of agencies. You've hired a consultant. There's no reason to invite 30 agencies unless the consultant doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah. No,
that was mean, but there's no reason why.
I don't think that exists.
We're the professionals, so we should be, having a smaller long list is much easier to deal with because everybody's got to read that stuff.
Russell, this was so great. Thank you. I think we got to most questions, and thank you, everyone. Russell, by the way, has promised to come back, so I'll be looking forward to that. And and you all know how to reach me through LinkedIn. And so if there are burning questions that you want to ask me, or you'd like to ask me to ask Russell, just let me know. We'll get your. We want agencies to win and grow in meaningful ways. So it's in our best interest.
And thank you, everybody, for taking, again, time out of your very busy day to listen to us. Much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you, Russell. I'll be talking to you soon.
You're welcome.